Sure, recording insurance.
Working on that.
Ready to get us recorded?
Yes.
Yep. We're good.
Good? Okay, I'll call this meeting to order. It's approximately 4:04 in the afternoon. I think the first thing is stand and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all.
I guess we'll have a roll call for the members here first, and maybe the audience introduce themselves. Start there with you all.
Walt Gardner, representing guides.
General Purcell, representing Nevada Farm Bureau.
Jim Barber, Director of Park and Bag.
Jerry Conrad, NDA.
Dennis, Deputy Attorney General. Chief Harris, Blue Room.
Clint Wright, DA.
Mark Jensen, Wildlife Services.
Cody,
Yeah, Cody Greenfield representing Sportsman.
you speak up.
Might have to speak up, Cody.
All right, yeah, Cody Greenfield representing Sportsman.
Cody, if they have a mobile mic there, can you try to get it closer to you?
See if I can find.
Where is this, in Las Vegas?
Yeah, to the left. Your left street, Las Vegas.
Las Vegas, you want to tell us who you are?
Sure, how to
They're not a board member.
There is public.
Las Vegas, you hear us?
We got a squirrel.
Yeah. I'm gonna.
That's Henry. Well, it's just showed up in Elko.
That's Pete.
Can you hear us in Elko?
Yes, can you hear us?
Yeah, you have to speak up. You want to introduce yourselves?
Find the microphone.
I think Cody went to look for one.
Yeah,
Maybe we'll just go down through here while they're figuring their stuff out.
I'm Darrell Capurro representing myself.
Don Moldy, Reno, myself.
Kara Tilo, Washoe County, myself.
Bill Stolzenberg, Reno, myself.
Pat Jackson, Nevada Department of Wildlife.
Austin Rockland, representing myself.
Alan Solani, representing myself.
Bobby McCollum.
Ted Brooks, Nevada Farm Bureau member.
Brian Wakeling with Nevada Department of Wildlife.
Jerry Lamp, Nevada Hunters Association.
We forgot about Grant.
Grant, are you there on the phone?
Yes. Grant Wallace representing the Nevada Board of Wildlife Commissioners.
Okay, sorry I didn't get you in the when we introduced the board.
No problem.
Can you hear us in Elko now?
We can hear you, we just don't know where the mobile microphone is, so we have to come up real close to the computer.
Okay, well, you just have to speak up so we can hear you then. I see we got new faces there.
Yeah, go ahead. You got Henry Krinka and Pete Morai here as well.
Okay, thank you. Las Vegas,
Yes,
can you introduce yourself?
Jana Wright, resident of Clark County. Karen Lane.
Okay. All right, well, with that done, we'll go to public comment. Public comment is something if you want to say something on this agenda. If you represent a group, you can speak for 5 minutes. If you represent yourself, you got 3 minutes.
They want everybody to go to the front table to do public comment.
Please, you can talk on the microphone up there.
Here?
Yeah, you want them, Sean, you want them presenting from there, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Wow.
Is there a microphone here?
Yeah, I can turn it above your head so you can sit and just talk loud. You're good.
Okay. Jerry Lent, and I want to give congratulations to new members of this committee and to the committee on their new assignment under AB 78, making it a legal obligation to review NDOW's predator plan and to see if the money is being spent according to law. And I helped draft the original predator bill, AB 291, in 2001, and all the revisions that came with it. And I was chairman of the Wildlife Commission for 2 years, and I see Darrell Capero walked in. He was a member of the Wildlife Commission also. And one of the reasons why we did this, I helped on this bill. I helped develop AB 78 for some legislators, and are extremely familiar with it. And one of the reasons because NDOW was not following the intent of the law on AB 291 when they first put that together many years ago. And so I helped develop on AB 78. And I'd like to be able to testify on when we get down to the predator plan, and so I won't go into that comments on that. I'll wait till we get to the predator plan on some of the problems I see in their predator plan, if that's okay with the chairman.
Anything that's on the agenda, when we have public comment at the end of the meeting, after all the presentations, you can have public comment on what was discussed at this meeting. If you have something before the meeting that's not on this agenda, you can speak to that this time.
Or if it's an action item, we'll be able to discuss that
after the meeting.
Well, no, we'll take public comment on each topic, correct?
if it's an action
item.
If
it's an action item.
Correct. Action item. Okay, then I've got some comments on the action item on the predator plans. I'll just forlong those until we get to that, if that's okay. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Karen Talo, and I'm a Washoe County resident. And contrary to what Dr. Lent said, I think that AB 78 is some of the worst legislation I've seen in the state of Nevada. I do not think that it's going to help wildlife. It's not going to help Nevada residents. I've been a Nevada resident since childhood, been following wildlife issues, and I consider it a self-serving legislation by a self-serving legislator. There's research to support that we don't need to kill predators at the rate that the proposals are going to be coming for killing predators. And frankly, I'm going to work really, really hard to make sure that AB 78 doesn't exist in this state. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, board members, Don Moldy, I'm speaking now on behalf of the Nevada Wildlife Alliance, of which I'm a co-founder. We're a fairly new group, year and a half or so in existence, and interested in wildlife, particularly those species that don't get a lot of attention from the traditional fish and game way of thinking about animals. With respect to AB 291 that Dr. Lent mentioned, that's what I wanted to address. That legislation in 2001 was brought to the legislature by a legislator and some sportsmen who sold the legislature on the idea that if this $3 predator fee were passed, it would be the salvation of Nevada's deer herds, which were thought to be in decline at that time, and the numbers were dropping. The bill as it was originally presented, which was simply to kill predators, non-human predators, I might add, was not able to be passed in the form in which it was originally presented. What happened is that the bill was amended so that education, research, and public education and habitat improvement could also be legitimate purposes. Do you need to do something? Anyway, so some additional amendments were put into that bill in order to make it passable, because it wasn't going to pass in its original condition. Over the years since then, even though habitat improvement, research, public education has been a part of the four things that money can be spent for, Dr. Lent and others have pushed only for killing coyotes and mountain lions and poisoning ravens. They have resisted the idea that those are legitimate uses of the money, and as a result of the AB 78 issue, they've succeeded in getting the 80% lethal number inserted into the bill, and you're supposed to rubber stamp or stand behind the plan so that NDOW doesn't do any backsliding. Now, NDOW's in a predicament because they didn't ask for AB 299. This was not a Department of Wildlife idea. They didn't want it. They made no effort to promote it, as I recall. And they're in a crazy position because now every year $400,000 shows up on their doorstep that they're supposed to spend 80% of killing things. And so they have to go around and sample the biologists' opinions and find somebody to come up with an idea about where to spend money to destroy public property without a reasonable biological justification. That's my interpretation of what they're stuck with. So they are stuck. They have to do something with the money. What they're doing with it is, of course, what we're going to debate today. In my view, none of it makes sense, but the law is what it is at the moment. So I just want to make sure we all had a little broader view. Oh, by the way, the deer herds that were going to be saved by the $3 predator fee, deer numbers have been flat in Nevada for 12 years now, at about 100,000 animals each year that the census is done. There's been no proliferation of deer in this state as a result of NDOW spending now probably close to $6 million to kill coyotes and mountain lions and poison ravens. Ravens, by the way, are for sage-grouse, not deer. Anyway, so nothing has happened. The money has been spent. Mr. Jensen has had a make-work program, and the public has got nothing but destruction of public property. Thank you. There we go.
You bet. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Darrell Capurro, formerly a member of the Nevada Wildlife Commission and a resident of Nevada all my 72 years. I've hunted in this state since I was 12 years old, so that's about 60 years. I've been over every part of this state at one time or another, either hunting or scouting or camping or whatever. But to follow up a little bit of what Chairman Lentz said when he was on the commission, the AB 78, you can forget the original legislation, we're dealing with AB 78 now. And that is the Bible as to how both the Department of Wildlife and this PARC committee, as restructured in that bill, are to operate. So we can talk about what your favorites are and favorites aren't. But the law is the law. And the law says in there that 80% of that $3 fee shall be spent for lethal management of predators. That's plain and simple. That's what the language says. 80% of the revenues produced, not the budget, but the revenues produced. So it's very clear as to what has to happen. Why? Because predators have become a problem over the years, despite what anybody would like to believe. And to say that killing predators doesn't help matters is ludicrous. The fact of the matter is that if you don't use lethal methods with regard to predators, they will overtake the prey base in a short order period of time. And when the prey base go down, yes, so does the predator base, but the prey base may not come back, and that's a real problem. Predators can move on to other things, such as cattle and sheep and other kinds of animals. The commission is bound by what is called Commission Policy Number 23. That's what defines what Predator Management Program is. That's their Bible as to how they have to operate, and it very specifically sets forth how they develop these projects. Nothing that the department has done in recent years follows that policy because it doesn't set forth specific reasons for
spending money killing predators in various areas. Many of the projects, as you look in there, will say statewide. That's all that's doing is saying, we want you to go out and spend this money statewide to kill whatever, how many of the predators you can. They're supposed to develop under that commission policy number 23, a plan, and that has to be based upon what it is they're looking for. How are they trying to improve the numbers of deer in specific areas, or bighorn sheep, or elk, or whatever the situation is?
Yeah,
the policy has not been set.
You only have about 20 seconds.
Thanks, sir. All I'm saying to you is that we worked very diligently with some legislators. The Department of Wildlife was also in on it, with staff members of the legislature and others to develop AB 78. And it passed fairly easily, and it is the law. And that's the law you have to follow until it's changed. And I'll be there to make sure it doesn't get changed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Yes, hello, Connie Howard. I'm a resident of Reno and a member of the Nevada Wildlife Alliance. I was going to comment later, but I just feel I have to address some of the comments of the previous speakers. Study after study has shown that there's no benefit to any of our animal populations by killing predators. And what I'd simply like to do is read from an article published, 2014 article, published in Conservation Letters. Just going to read a paragraph briefly. For more than 100 years, and it's entitled License to Kill, Reforming Federal Wildlife Control to Restore Biodiversity and Ecosystem Function. For more than 100 years, the U.S. government has conducted lethal control of native wildlife to benefit livestock producers and to enhance game populations, especially in the western states. Since 2000, Wildlife Services, an agency of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, has killed 2 million native mammals, predominantly 20 species of carnivores, beavers, and several species of ground-dwelling squirrels, but also many non-target species. Many are important species in their native ecosystems. Ecosystem engineers such as prairie dogs, beavers, and apex predators such as gray wolves. Reducing their populations locally or globally risks cascading negative consequences, including impoverishment of biodiversity, loss of resilience to biotic invasions, destabilization of populations at lower trophic levels, and loss of many ecosystem services that benefit human society directly and indirectly. Lethal predator control is not effective at reducing predation in the long term. Instead, we recommend that Wildlife Services and its government partners involved in wildlife conflict management emphasize training livestock producers in methods of non-lethal control, with sparing use of lethal control by methods that are species-specific, and cease all lethal control in federal wilderness areas and for the purpose of enhancing populations of common game species. The science is indisputable and irrefutable on the fact that massive killing of predators does nothing but harm our wildlife and our ecosystems. Thank you. Oh, and I should say, nothing is more an abomination than AB 78.
Thank you.
Oh, and I'll submit this technical article in case your biologists have not read it.
Is there any other public comment? Pardon?
You need to ask Vegas and Elko too.
Anybody got any public comment from Vegas or Elko?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Jana Wright in Las Vegas. I would just like to say that, pardon me?
Speak up, please, so we can hear you.
Okay. AB 78 started out as an increase to the elk tag fee. Then it morphed into this monster that now has 80% requirement on the predation plan. I would think that all parties would work together to ask for a bill draft to get rid of the $3 predator fee. The predation plan doesn't get any results, and it's a waste of money and time for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Karen Lane. I was, since everybody else seems to be saying it, I was also a former wildlife commissioner. I just recently am off the commission, and up until recently, I served on the Wildlife Damage Management Committee, and certainly are very well aware of Policy 23. We spent a huge amount of effort in the last couple of years trying to resolve some of the issues that we had with previous plans. I will say that the commission, Mr. Lynn and Mr. Coturo say that they worked with the commission. I will say that I sat on that commission, and we were very surprised at a telephonic meeting, I think it was in April or May, regarding the legislation, that this legislation, this AB 78, had moved from an elk reimbursement bill to a bill that was dealing with a $3 fee. And I think Commissioner Pete Morai apparently, and also Mr. Brad Johnson apparently had met with Pico Pachia, and they had set up this bill, and they brought that to the commissioner saying this is the bill that they wanted. We were very surprised at that point. I certainly was, regarding the bill. So I'm going to be interested to see some of the discussion from the other areas today. I have my own concerns about this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anybody else?
Anybody in Elko?
Anybody in Elko wants to comment?
No comment.
Okay. Here, nobody else wanting to comment. I guess we'll move forward and approve the minutes from the June 29th meeting.
September 2nd.
Pardon?
September 2nd.
Or September 2nd. September 2nd.
Or 1st, actually. No, I can't.
I believe the meeting was on the 2nd.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, the minutes of September 2nd.
September 2nd is what it was.
Oh, the agenda.
That's the minutes. Yeah, you're actually, you're the correction. It should be September 1. You're actually,
We're going to approve the minutes from September 2nd of 2015 from the meeting that was in Elko. Has all the board members had a chance to review those minutes?
yes, I have.
Is there a motion to approve them, or do you want
I
to
make
read?
a motion we approve the minutes.
Oh, second.
It's been motioned and seconded by Darrell Purcell and Walt Gardner. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carries. So we'll move on. Now I'd like to introduce the two new members that we have on this board. First of all, I'd like to introduce Cody Krinka, who's a sportsman that's sitting in Elko. I think he's sitting in the middle of your screen up there. Wave your hand there, Cody. And he's representing the sportsmen. And we have Walt Gardner here representing the guides. Those are the two new members that are here. Dr. Hussein couldn't be here today, I guess, for a prior meeting, and I understand that Boyd was traveling.
Yeah, we don't know where Boyd is right now, so
we don't have Boyd here, and the rest of us are here, I guess. So Grant Wallace is on the telephone. Anyway, with that, we'll move on to number 5. And like I said, this meeting is strictly presenting what this new law is going to be and what it entails. We're going to have another meeting in February sometime with our recommendation and plans of what needs to be done. But for right now, this meeting is an informational meeting on these new AB 78. So with that, Mark, we'll turn that over for you for that information.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I'm Mark Jensen. I'm the State Director for the USDA Wildlife Services Program, also the Program Manager for the Nevada Wildlife Services Program. Again, this agenda item is on AB 78. Hopefully all the committee and the board members have the copy of AB 78. And again, I'm just going to go over a few things in this. We're not going to go through every line of it, but again, I'm going to go through a few items in this to point out what responsibilities that this committee has as far as making recommendations. And our Deputy Attorney General, if I screw this up, he's going to, of course, help me get through this. But again, all the committee members and board members should pull out their copy of AB 78. And again, all of you can read, and a lot of this pertains to the Wildlife Commission. But there's a couple of things that I did want to point out. And again, most of this is on page 5. Is everybody finding?
Yeah, they don't have a copy of it in the packet.
Yeah, we don't have a copy of it in the packet, Mark. Sorry.
I will here in a second, so if you can start talking about it in general, I'll bring this back in.
All right. Again, AB 78 is a bill, again, that was passed, and it does outline some specifics that are requirements of this board. And I guess I'll just read through a couple of sections, one on page 5, section 4. And it talks about amending, it's NRS 502-253, it's hereby amended to read as the follows. And again, it talks about the $3 fee is charged for each application, game tag, and then it talks about how or what the money is for. And A says developing and implementing an annual program for the management and control of predatory wildlife. B is wildlife management activities related to the protection of non-predatory game animals and sensitive wildlife species. And then C is conducting research necessary to determine successful techniques for managing and controlling predatory wildlife. All right. Any questions on that from the committee? Anything in Elko? All right. Well, I'll move down to number 4, which again gets into some of the specifics of what is required of this committee. And I'll read number 4. The commission, in approving any program developed or wildlife management activity or research conducted pursuant to this section, shall first consider the recommendations of the State Predatory Animal and Rodent Committee created by NRS 567.020. And it goes on from there, but again, according to the law, this committee is required to make a recommendation to the Wildlife Commission, to the Board of Wildlife Commissioners. And that's pretty straightforward in the law. So again, are there any questions about that? I just wanted to make sure that the committee understands what your responsibilities are before we go forward. Okay. Mr. Chairman, that's all I have for number 5. If there are no questions.
Daryl, Walt, you got any questions for Mark?
Not at this time, no.
Cody?
No questions. I have it on digital copy, so we're good.
Grant?
I wish I had a copy of that. I'm calling in remotely, and it's hard to try and do internet and have a phone call at the same time. Not working for me. So
Grant, we're going to have a copy of it sent over to you before we're done with this meeting.
okay. I mean, I've seen it before, but I wish I could have it to look at right now. But that's okay.
Thank you.
And again, Mr. Chairman, if there are any questions that come up, please communicate with myself or Flint, and in the next meeting we can have an answer for you. So if there are questions that come up, let Flint know, and then we'll work on providing an answer for you.
Okay. Our next item is the review of the NDOW's Policy 23 and deadlines for making comments to the federal plan.
Again, for the record, I'm Mark Jensen. Again, the committee members should pull out the copy that was provided to them of NDOW Commission Policy 23. And again, this is an NDOW Commission policy. And of course, it pertains mostly to NDOW, but what I wanted to present to the group, and so you guys could all understand, was the timelines on when NDOW does what, in order so that you as a committee can meet your deadlines and your obligations in order to provide comments within the guidelines that NDOW is going to follow according to Policy 23. So if you flip, and again, you guys can all read through this stuff and read it at your leisure, and if you have questions about it as we go forward, we can look for an answer for you. If in future meetings you want to have information from the Department of Wildlife, I'm sure that we can get them to come in and provide you with information. But again, what I wanted to point out to the committee is on page 5. And basically, it starts talking about the predator plan. And as you see under number 2, it says a draft plan shall be submitted to the commission during the February commission meeting. So again, this particular year, there is not a February meeting, there's a January meeting that's going to be at the end of January. And that's when the Department of Wildlife will submit to the commission the draft plan. The draft plan is on NDOW's website, and all of you have a copy of the draft 17 plan, and we'll talk about that later. But just so you understand the timelines, the Department of Wildlife will submit the first draft in February. And then if you carry on down to number 3, the committee shall set a meeting in conjunction with the March meeting. And if you're going to skip on down, at the March meeting, the commission shall review the report of the committee and may vote to make a recommendation to the department. So again, the March meeting for the NDOW Commission, I think, is March 23rd and 24th. So you as a committee need to, will need to come up with and formalize the recommendations and get it to the Wildlife Commission before this March meeting. Go ahead, Walt.
How much time do we need to give them to review our recommendations, or do we just, as long as it's before that meeting?
As long as it's before that meeting, again, you will provide the recommendations for the March meeting. The Department of Wildlife will look at that, consider the recommendations, and then if you look at number 4, it says the department shall prepare a final draft predation management plan and present it to the committee and commission at their May meeting. So the department will have the final draft and present it to the Wildlife Commission in the May meeting. Then number 5 says, on or before June 30th, after consideration of all comments the department shall finalize the predation management plan for the next fiscal year. So the fiscal year starts July 1 on the state side. So on or before June 30th, the department shall finalize the predation management plan. Any questions on that? So again, later on in this meeting, there'll be a discussion about your next meeting. And again, all we're doing now is letting you guys know what your obligations are, talking and reviewing some of the information that's available, letting you ask questions, but mostly to let you know what your obligations are. Mr. Chairman, that's all I have for item number 6, unless there's any questions.
Grant, do you have any questions on number 6?
No, I'm good.
Odie? I guess if you guys have any questions anymore from the room. Okay, with that, we'll move on to item number 7. That's to review NDOW's current FY 2016 predator management plan.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, Mark Jensen for the record. All of you should have received a copy of the fiscal year 16 predation management plan. Now, hopefully all of you had a chance to read it and review it. Again, I'm not going to go through each and every line of this, but again, everybody should understand that, again, the Department of Wildlife develops this plan, and it goes through and uses Policy 23 as a guideline on developing the plan. Some of the things that are in the plan, the Department of Wildlife comes to us, Wildlife Services, and requests our assistance in helping implement this plan. Again, this is NDOW's plan. I am helping NDOW implement their plan. Again, you guys have a responsibility now to review it and to make recommendations on it moving forward into 2017. But again, this is the 2016 plan that is currently underway. These projects are current, and these are the projects that we are currently doing right now. And this will run through the end of June, when there'll be a new plan. So again, there's projects in here to protect sage grouse. There's bighorn sheep projects in here. There's coyote projects to protect big game in here. There are some study projects that we are not involved with this. But again, you guys can read through all of this and kind of get a feel for what's going on out there. Again, as we move forward, if you want more detailed information on the projects, we can help provide that. We can ask the Department of Wildlife to come in and give a presentation on different projects. Again, this is for the committee's information on what you want to do. So again, my main point with this is hopefully the committee understands that the 16 plan is the current plan that's underway right now. Is there any questions on the 2016 plan? And again, we're gonna get into this a little bit deeper on the 17 plan, but go ahead, Walt.
When I reviewed it on sub-project 22-1,
What page are you on, Walt?
Number 14.
All right.
Most of these plans in here have a method, and I couldn't find a method. Oh, I found it here, but it doesn't say whether it's a lethal or non-lethal plan.
Mm-hmm.
And I was confused by that.
All right. Well, we'll make note of that, Walt. And again, there's things that we can make, or you, as a committee, can make recommendations on. We'll make note of that, and we can provide recommendations. But again, as an educational component of this, everybody should understand that this is NDOW's plan, put together by NDOW, approved by the commission, and then NDOW comes to Wildlife Services for our help implementing their plan. Any other questions on the fiscal year 2016 plan?
Cody? Grant?
Sounds good.
You guys? Okay, Mark, here are no more questions. We'll move on to number 8, I guess.
Is this going to be public comment section?
It's not an action item because we're not taking any action on this item. That's why it's listed for possible action. So unless somebody in the committee actually wants to put forward a motion for some sort of recommendations on 16.
I recommend, since some people may have withheld comment on this, because they thought it was an action item, they withheld comment at the initial comment period, maybe they should be afforded the opportunity to make comment if they have any.
Totally fine. You guys have public comment? Anybody have a comment?
Down there.
Yeah, we need you down there for the recording process.
Drink. Jerry Lent with the Nevada Hunter Association. And I'd like to give a handout here. I got 7 of them. It should be enough for everybody. So understand, and the people on the other won't be able to have the advantage of being able to see them. But reviewing this 2016 plan, I'd like to make a comment that under policy 23, I think it's a committee's responsibility to take a look at these plans, how they're developed, because it said these projects, which what they are, shall include specific project goals, a detailed description of anticipated results, predator and prey wildlife species that may be impacted, span if they're going to be more than 1 year, and et cetera. So it's like Lowell said, they have to meet certain parameters on these plans, and so as you review them, you should make sure they comply with policy 23, because that's their own policy. And there's 2 main problems with this predator plan. I'm talking about the 2016 and the 2017 also, and I handed out what NDOW is counting. They're counting study projects such as what is the diet of lions, etc., as lethal projects under the disguise of calling them limited lethal. And limited lethal, I have no idea what it is, but limited lethal is not in AB 78. It's not in law. The law says lethal. It doesn't say anything about limited lethal. So what they're doing is they're counting, they're mixing and matching study with lethal, and they're calling them lethal. And I think this is to circumvent the 80% mandatory lethal legislation. And they're including everything but the kitchen sink under lethal. But if you look at these plans I gave you, that I gave out in the handout here, they have study in them, and they have a lethal aspect to them. And they got to break out the lethal, and they got to break out the study part of them, because they're not complying with the law as 80%. And if you look at the ones that I picked out, they're only putting out about 66% instead of the 80%. And that was just me, a recommendation from this committee to say that they're not complying with the law. I mean, that's all you can do is make a recommendation on it. And that is a problem that I see in the 2016, and it's also in the 2017 project. And the other thing I see is, if you look at the 2016, they changed projects, and there's addendum A1 to the 2016, and they're going to collar GPS coyotes in the diamonds, which, to me, that's an impossibility.
You have 30 seconds.
What's that?
30 seconds.
Okay. And so I think all changes in this predator plan should go to the committee, because you guys don't know anything about it, but it's in the back of it, and they made a change in it. And and they made changes in that, and you guys don't know about them. And everybody, all the projects should be run through this committee. And so that's something else you should make a recommendation. Any changes in this plan should go to the committee, and you should be notified of it. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Karen Taylor, Washoe County resident. Also, if you look under policy 23, you will see that these programs are supposed to be helping wildlife, and specifically in policy 23, it says wildlife belongs to all the people in Nevada. I'm counting 7 people in this room who think that AB 78 is an abomination. And not all of them have spoken up yet. So as you're reviewing policy 23, please recognize that there's more people in the state of Nevada than a couple 100,000 hunters. And interestingly enough, with Nevada Wildlife Alliance at our events, we have hunters showing up. There's a lot of hunters that are not very happy with this at all. Also, you need to take a look at under policy 23, under A, number 1, it talks about the timeliness. So there's timeliness. These killing events have to end at a certain time. They can't go on and on and on. And that's what some of the things I don't see time on some of these studies. Thank you.
Thank you. Mo.
Mr. Chairman, Don Moldivino, a couple of things. I agree with Dr. Lent with respect to his policy concerns. The commission spent, I don't know, probably a year fussing around with this policy number 23. And it followed on the heels of the governor vetoing a bill which would have included many of the elements that is now in policy 23. Governor vetoed the bill because policy 23 was being created and doing essentially the same thing as the bill would do. So it has good elements, particularly trying to justify projects in terms of a location, some data to support the projects, and so on. From what I've seen the last couple of years, sometimes there's one sentence to justify spending tens of thousands of dollars to destroy public property. It's crazy, although on the other side of it, I know that NDOW has to do something because the legislature is shoving the money at them and they have to spend it. So I understand that predicament as well. Nonetheless, the policy has good elements and I support it. With respect to the 80% item that Dr. Lent mentioned, the research studies that he mentioned, coyote collaring, and I forgot what the other one was, those projects, I believe in research, I support it. Those projects were created by NDOW before the 80% requirement was enacted into law. The 80% requirement only came into being after this last legislature adjourned. And to me, the fiscal year 16 plan did not require that element to be met. It's a new thing and it applies to the 17 plan, but in my view, not to the 16 plan.
Yeah.
I'm going to go after you next time.
Okay. Probably a good idea. Again, for the record, Darrell Pearl, representing myself. Dr. Bolde and the previous speaker are actually right, and I had mentioned this, if you recall, that the plans that are developed must have some objectives to them that are not currently in most of the projects that are under consideration for Project 17. I will disagree with Dr. Moldy. The AB 78 was passed by the legislature and became law as of May 27th. So therefore, it was applied to this year's, it should have been run past the PARC committee at that time. Laws, when they become laws, apply to everybody. You can't just say, well, we'll do this for the fiscal year 17 one. That's not the way it works. But, to give you some idea, if you read through that number 1, under the authority, it's on page 5 of Commission Policy 23, it sets forth all of the things that the Department of Wildlife should set forth in spending money to protect wildlife, whether it's non-lethal or lethal and the like. So when you look at that and then compare those elements that are in subsection 1 with what is exactly written in the plan itself for each one of those projects, in many cases, as was given, there's a one-line effort. It just says statewide will spend $50,000. That's not good enough. Not good enough for the sportsmen. I don't think it's good enough for the public. There's a need to explain why you are doing this, and there is a need for the department to further flesh this out. You can't just show a map and say we're going to kill coyotes statewide in this area here. It's got to be very specific. I've got other comments on 17, but I'll withhold those until we get into 17. Thank you. Any questions?
You guys have any comments on Vegas and Elko? Grant?
No comment.
Would the representatives from NDOW like to comment on what's just been said? Okay, thank you. Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 9.
All right, Mark Jensen for the record, item 9. I think we're on 8, aren't we? We're on 8?
8 was 16. Number 9 is 17.
Maybe I've got an old one.
No, we still got
16.
Still got 8.
There's 2 revision or reviewing 16.
So we're on the work and financial plan, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So everybody, committee members, pull out the work and financial plan. And again, I included this in your packet and in your information so the committee can understand, again, how this works and how this agreement works between Wildlife Services and the Nevada Department of Wildlife. And again, this is just a basic work and financial plan that shows that we have entered into an agreement with the Nevada Department of Wildlife. And it lays out, if you look on page 3, it lists the cost estimates for services. And again, the front of this one looks like this.
I don't think we have the right information. Okay.
Chairman, was this included in our support material, or is this at the end of the 2016 Predator Plan?
You referenced page
No.
46 in the predator plan?
No,
It's
this
different.
didn't get put in there, Greg. We thought we had the right information in there, and it's not. This is actually Mark's.
Let me make copies of that for this end.
And again, I can basically explain this because all this shows is that it shows the committee that Wildlife Services enters into a financial agreement with the Nevada Department of Wildlife. And it does outline the specifics as far as the specific amount of money that each project is covering, and then there's a grand total at the end. So again, the point that I wanted to make and to make sure that the committee understands is that Wildlife Services enters into a financial agreement with the Department of Wildlife to help them implement this plan. And this agreement is what we call a reimbursable agreement. It basically says that we agree to do this work, and the Department of Wildlife agrees to reimburse us for it. And it has various cost estimates for the different projects and cost estimates for the work that we do. Again, this is a reimbursable agreement, which basically means that Wildlife Services does the work. There's no money exchanged up front. We just agree to do the work. They agree to pay, and then we go do the work, and then we submit bills to the Department of Wildlife. They review the bills, and then they pay. So again, I didn't really want to get into the real details of the work and financial plan. It's something that we do every year. We do it with the Department of Wildlife. We do it with a number of other entities across the state. But again, I just wanted the committee to understand that we do enter into a financial agreement, and it is a reimbursable. The cost estimates are laid out up front, and that's what we agree to abide by. And if we've entered into an agreement, we have agreed not to exceed that agreement unless we have an amendment to the work and financial plan. I think I've got that right, Brian. Is there anything you guys want to add from the Department of Wildlife? I think they're still making copies, Mr. Chairman, but sorry.
Need one?
I need my original back, if you would.
Start there and pass that way, and the second batch is coming.
Again, the committee can see this is real basic stuff, straightforward stuff. It's a financial agreement, but again, it talks about cost of services, cost estimates, and I just wanted the committee to understand that yes, the plan is indeed written, and the plan is approved by the commission, but then also I enter into a financial agreement with the Department of Wildlife. And this is what I have agreed to do and conduct for the Department of Wildlife. And again, this is a financial document. Any questions on the work and financial plan? And again, we do this every year. So this is the current work and financial plan. I will add that I have been contacted by the Department of Wildlife, and they do want to amend this work and financial plan to add some monies to different projects on this. Again, I can share that with the committee when we get that done. But again, I don't have that completed for the committee. But we are talking about amending this working financial plan for 2016, and then there, of course, will be a new working financial plan for the 2017 plan. So again, in the plans, there's always going to be a budget, and then based on my discussions with the Department of Wildlife, we enter into an agreement. Any questions? That's all I have for
Las Vegas has a question.
for that.
Las Vegas, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, Karen Lane here. Since we don't have a copy of that, can I ask Mr. Jensen what percentage of that, we're assuming that this is all being paid from the $3 creditor fees. Mr. Jensen, what percent of that contract that you have for 2016 is for lethal methods?
Did you get that one?
I think I understand the question, Mr. Chairman. And again, I don't have an exact percentage of what would be, I guess, considered lethal. But again, some of our work that we do requires that we gather information. For example, on our work, raven removal to protect sage grouse, there is information that's gathered. There are pre-treatment surveys and post-treatment surveys. There's that kind of information that is gathered. And of course, when that work is being done, NDOW is paying for it. But then also along with that, the eggs are being put out and the ravens are being removed. So I really don't have an exact number for you, but the majority of the work that falls under this is going to be, I guess, in the lethal category, if not all of it. The non-lethal is research projects that we are mostly not involved with. Have I got that right, Brian? So did that answer your question?
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mark? Okay, we have no more. Grant, do you have any questions for Mark?
No, I'm good.
Grant, just as a clarification, Flint, right, I had those 2 documents emailed to you. You should have them soon.
Flint.
Now we'll get to number 9. Now I'm a little ahead of myself.
All right, number 9, again, Mark Jensen for the record, review of the draft 2017 Predator Management Plan. Again, this is the one with the sage grouse on the front. All the committee members should have the draft. And again, please remember that this is a first draft. This is the department's first crack at the 2017 plan. And again, I'm not going to go through every line of this. And again, I encourage all of the committee members to read this. You might compare it to the 2016 plan if you want, but again, this is the Department of Wildlife's first crack at the 2017 plan. And this is the plan that this committee will be providing recommendations on. So again, it's going to be very important that the members of the committee read this, review it. If you have any questions about it, please contact myself or Flint, and we can provide that information for you. And we don't have to worry about any recommendations today, but what this committee needs to do is make sure that you read this, review it, and then if I'm not correct, or if I'm not incorrect, at the next meeting is when this committee will formalize your recommendations to be sent forward to the Wildlife Commission and to the Department of Wildlife.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
In that process, as we're moving forward, I would assume that you would want members of the committee to email those requests in ahead of time, to give staff time enough to basically put them into a compiled list so that you guys can sort through them at the meeting. I would assume that would be a more efficient, effective way, so that they're not new, and then that can be sent out to your committee members along the way. Is that acceptable?
That sounds like a good idea to me, so the guy could read them and have
Exactly.
an idea of what we're going to discuss at the next meeting.
So we'll lay out some kind of date by which you guys would need to submit that to our office. We'll consolidate those, and then we can get that out to NDOW and get that out to you guys and to the public so that everybody's ready to dive into it.
Who would we contact, Flynn or?
Yeah, email through Flint.
Okay.
And he has an executive assistant that can compile everything.
Okay.
Yeah, all your comments for the next meeting or any meeting for that matter. But if we could have those compiled a couple days ahead of whatever the date we set for the next meeting, that would be definitely helpful.
One thing that I will remind the new members of the committee is, as you email things, you cannot reply to all and start a back and forth deliberation of comments, because again, that would be a violation of the open meeting law. So you can provide information to Flint, but please do not hit reply all and start a deliberation, because that would be a violation of the open meeting law.
Trust me, if you do, I'll stop you. Because I don't want to be in violation of the open meeting law.
I appreciate that.
Well, I know if I did it because I messed up, pushed the wrong button or something, didn't know what the heck I was doing. I've done that before.
Again, I will not go through all of the different projects. Again, everyone here can read and go through these different projects. I will invite our members from Department of Wildlife, if you guys have comment or want to talk about the 17 plan as a draft, here's your chance.
Thank you, Mark. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Brian Wakely, I'm the administrator for the game division of the Nevada Department of Wildlife. Like Mark indicated, this is the first draft. Most of the materials carried forward from what we adopted in prior years, and so what we put together is just the concepts at this point in time. And so we really want to hear, the feedback from the park, from the public, and ultimately, we haven't even shared this with the commission yet at this time. They just received it. And so our intent is going to be to share this with them at their next meeting and get their feedback. And so we'll be preparing the next draft based off of that. Ultimately, the commission meets the last weekend in March. I think it's actually the March 25th, 26th. Wildlife Damage Management Committee will meet just prior to that. And so, if you can get those comments in, and that was the structure that we discussed as AB 78 was going through the legislative process, seemed to fit with the PARC committee meetings schedule. And so that would facilitate your ability to provide any comment and for the commission and the department's consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, any other?
Do you guys have a feel, because I think you're almost going to have to work backwards, if you guys have identify a next meeting date, then we can identify a date by which you want to receive comments from the committee members.
Okay. Yep. Well, that's kind of taking it out of order. We do have that as on the agenda, though.
Right, but you can't set, I think the action, I would assume the action that you would want to take on number 9 is to set a date by which to receive comments by NDA staff so that you have enough time to put those together. You see what I'm saying?
No, absolutely. I think, though, the chair needs to, we're going to start talking about next meeting date. Don't we need to move this up on the agenda? I mean, he can take things out of order if he wishes to. Anyway.
If you can get a feel for it, then you can take the action on 12. But if you can get a solid feel for the date, then you can go ahead and knock 17 out, and then, or take public comment and then do your action of setting a date by which to have the comments due by. So, I mean, do you guys have a guesstimation of when you'd like to have a meeting, then you can see if you have any objections and do it that way?
Maybe in the chair, I personally would like to have the meeting between somewhere February 20th and 25th. Prior to that date.
I'll be in DC that week.
Pardon?
I'm going to be in DC around the 20th through the 25th, something like that.
And I don't even know what day the 20th is on.
20th is Saturday.
Yeah, the 21st through the 25th, I'm in DC.
So somewhere between 18th, 19th is fine with me. 18th. That works for everybody else.
Grant, would the 18th work for you?
February?
Yes, sir.
No, March.
No,
February,
February.
sorry.
February 18th.
Yeah, I think I can make that work.
Cody?
Yeah, I can make that work.
Okay, so you can set that when you get to that topic. So with that in the back of your mind, what would you think that you would want to receive those, Clint, to be able to have your staff member put it together?
I would no later than the 16th. Unless, how much of that do we need to have like agendized?
Yeah, you're gonna have to agendize out in front of the 18th, so and
At
hopefully
least 3
the first.
business days.
So we got 17th, well, the problem is 15th is Washington birthday, so it'd have to be the 12th, Friday the 12th.
Yeah, but you got to put it all together too.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I would, my suggestion would be somewhere between the 8th and the 10th, and then that gives you a few days to put it together and be able to put it out on the internet.
Let's say the 9th, Tuesday the 9th.
That work by committee members?
Gonna have to.
That work for you, Cody?
Yeah, it's good.
Grant?
Yeah.
Somebody put that in the form of a motion. I think you're ready to go. Oh, wait a minute, you need to have public comment. Sorry, my bad.
Go ahead.
Jerry Lent with the Nevada Hunter Association. And our meeting, we got the same problems with the 2017 plan as we have the 2016. And if you look at the back of it, and you will be looking at it, they're only using 70% of the funds for lethal, and they're using mixed lethal the rest. So they're not in compliance with the law of the 80%. So you should look at the 80% and the dollar values on their program. And you know, we as sportsmen, and the department has never offered to work with us on this, but, you know, we as sportsmen don't believe in just going out and killing predators, just killing them, just for the heck of it. And that's why Policy 23 has some information in it that says you must have goals, etc. And if you look at the plan here, and you'll be looking at it, Project 37, Big Game Protection for Mountain Lions. And it said the goal, removes specific problematic mountain lions to benefit game species. It's not very concise. What game species? There's not a clear goal as required in their policy. And this is what I want the committee to be looking at. And there's no population goal. It says to benefit game species. There's no population goal. So how do you know when it's necessary to do this project? You don't know it, because there's no goals. You don't go out and just kill lions, and that's what this says. And I think this should be reiterated. And the other one is you'll be looking at was the Project 40 on the coyote removal in Eureka County. And it says they're just going to go out and remove coyotes in there. And what scientific evidence do you have that says you need to kill coyotes in the diamonds? There's nothing in there. There's no scientific data in here that says you need to do it. And we're opposed to just going out and killing predators. But there's got to be a good reason, some scientific basis for it, and that's what their policy is. So I think it'd be good that the committee looks at that. And the other thing I had was, you know, I got a concern. I guess I can bring this up now, where we were just told that NDOT wanted to amend the plan. And how can you amend a plan in the middle of the program? We're in what, end of July? And this program was implemented in, in January, and this was implemented in July. We're in the middle of this program, and they want to amend it. Well, why? So they comply with the 80%. It takes time to gear up, takes time to hire employees, and time to get equipment. And it'd be a waste of money now. We've got the best snow in the history of the state, in the Rubies and in Eureka. This is the time, if you want to do predator work, this is the time to do it. And you wait and you're going to lose it. And we should be taking advantage of it. And to gear up now is a waste of time and money. And I don't know why you want to amend a program in the middle of it. And when they have a program, they should come to the
Can we hold there on your public comment? We lost our connection. Hold on 1 second. Sorry.
Stand by.
You're in the middle of that thought. Sorry.
Are they gone?
No, they're still connected.
I'm not going to repeat it.
Your speech is fantastic, but it put the projector asleep.
Now your projector died. Don't say that. Editing time overheat.
Yeah, that's not a joke tonight.
Can we do a sound check? See if everybody here. You don't need to see them.
Nice to see if they can hear us.
Can you guys hear us?
Yes.
You got a quorum
They're still
here?
there.
They're still there, so continue with your comments and we'll work the.
Okay. As long as you have a quorum here, I guess that's all. But I think that to change a program, to amend it in the middle of a stream is ludicrous. So I think you should make a recommendation. If NDOW wants you to, in July 1, they should tell you what they want them to do, what you guys to do, and then you do it. Because in the middle of it, I don't see how these guys, APHAs or whatever they're called, how they can get organized in the middle of a program and take advantage of what they're supposed to do. And I think that's really, you should make that recommendation. All cards have to be on the table by July 1 or whenever you're going to make the contract. And there's a project in there that you want to look at, 2216, Coyote Den Study. In our opinion, in our meeting, it's a farce. And it has no scientific value to sportsmen. And it's a waste of money. We're spending $160,000 a year for 5 years.
You're down to about 30 seconds.
$900,000 on the study coyotes and the den and what they eat. It has no value. And I think you guys should look at that and you could make recommendations that this is a program that should be discontinued. It's a flawed project. And I think this committee could make those recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was mine.
Oh,
That was mine.
that's yours. This is mine. Thank you.
Any other comment?
Easy on me.
Mr. Chairman, Donald Reno, I astonished myself by seconding much of what Dr. Lentz said. No, I joke. I'm glad to hear him say that they don't believe in just killing predators, because reading the Hunter's Alert newsletter over the years, you wouldn't get that idea. But I'm glad that he endorses the idea of setting up some goals and objectives, collecting some data, looking to see whether the money is well spent and all of that sort of thing. Because that's really what is missing. For example, and the fiscal 17 plan 22074, mountain lion removal for the protection of Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep. The justification is one sentence: lethal removal of mountain lions will allow blah, blah, blah. And the price tag on this is $45,000. So with a one-sentence justification that specifies no location, no reason, no data, no nothing to support it, the department wants to spend $45,000 to destroy one of the most interesting animals in the state, which is public property, not the property of sportsmen, by the way. That animal belongs to everybody. And interestingly enough, the reason that's important is because, I think it was before Mr. Jensen's time, the commission actually spent $50,000 over 2 years with Wildlife Services to kill one mountain lion in the Delamar Range about 10 or 12 years ago. $50,000 to kill one mountain lion. And that mountain lion, I'm sure, it probably had nothing to do with bighorn sheep anyway. So what really galls me about this stuff is that we're destroying public property for no reason that I can see. And to me, that should be a crime for which people go to jail. Being in wildlife management, it's the only thing I know of in this state where you can destroy public property at no penalty, if you come up with some reason to think you're justifying it. I have a suggestion, which Dr. Lent might consider. Since research is clearly within the parameters of the $3 predator fee that has not been removed by AB 78, it seems to me some of the lethal money should be spent in preliminary research and data collection in an area where the biologists or maybe even the sportsmen believe there's some reason to kill predators there, gather some data, come up with a hypothesis, develop some measurement monitoring techniques so that when lethal application occurs, there can be some way to know if something is happening. Right now, the biologists just have to pull a program out of their back pocket and hope something happens. We should do better than that. And some of this money could be used for that because the law allows for it. You're going last again.
He's got to follow you.
I know, he's got it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Again, Darrell Capurro for the record. Defending the department a little bit, they fleshed out, if you look at the project, the 2016 project, final one that was adopted, they did flesh out some of the areas that they're required to look at under Commission Policy 23. Not enough, in my opinion, but they still did try. My belief is they should have set forth some things for the 2017 program that also, because right now it just looks like they rubber stamped 17 with what happened with 16 with a little more money. What Dr. Molde indicated is when you take 80% of that $3 fee, that means there's 20% left. And the intention of that was that 20% be used for research and study. Now, even further than that, that 20% can be matched with federal PR funds to dollar for dollar. Well, it's more than that. It's 3 to 1. 3 to 1. So you end up with a lot more money than what you could, and you cannot match lethal control with PR money. So you get a bigger bang for the buck with that 20%, which I agree should be used towards the things that we talked about, nesting success and the like. But that leaves the fact that the law says 80% is to be spent for lethal control. You can also, you're not held, the department's not held to spending the $3 fee for anything we've talked about here. They have other funds that they collect that could be used in any one of those areas. So I think the problem that we have is, and look at specifically, and I'll be bringing this up to the department in their meeting next week. You take sub-project 2102, common raven removal. If you look at the explanation on it, it's all lethal. But if you look at the summary here, it says, and greater sage-grouse nest success. That's research or study. So how much of this $50,000 is for lethal, and how much for the study end of it? I brought that up last year in the 2016 plan and never got an answer for it. I'd like to get one this time. It should be separated out. You have another one on 2274 on lion removal and diet analysis. Part of it is lethal.
About 30 seconds.
Part of it is not. So it needs to be set forth as to how much you're going to use for lethal, how much for studies. That will affect what that percentage is, because if you take it the way they've set it forth, yes, they would be spending about 80%. If you take it the way it's really set forth in the wording, it's about 70%. In fact, it's about 66%. So in any event, those are things that you should be taking a look at, since you'll be involved in this program too. Thank you, I appreciate the time. Any questions?
Elko? Any questions? Asayas?
Mr. Chair, Karen Lane here. I think there's a little bit of misunderstanding about that 20% that's left over, because in the past, at least 20% has been spent on salaries for the biologists involved in overseeing these programs. So there are salary costs. And if you look at the back of the 2016 plan, there is money coming from other funds, but there was some place in that budget that talked about the salaries, and that was a concern when we originally looked at the legislation that said 80%, because those salaries were originally, the rest of that money. So there were at least 20% of that money to cover the, trying to run these studies, to pay for the biologists, and I'm sure Brian can talk more about that. But so, I think people need to understand that money is kind of already spoken for in some respects.
Yes, Connie Howard again. Some people have addressed the fact that the goals seem very brief, and I would add that if you're going to say, well, the goal here is to, we're going to remove mountain lions to enhance bighorn sheep numbers, I'd like to see it substantiated by peer-reviewed science. To me, it just seems something, a statement thrown out there. And before we go along with the destruction of our common wildlife resources that we all love, I would like to see the science put forward that X and Y project will actually achieve the goals. I think it's the same with the raven killing. We have killed thousands and thousands of ravens under the supposition that that this will increase sage grouse numbers. I'd like to see the peer-reviewed science sites cited so that I know this. When I look at this, I think that both of these plans, 16 and 17, aren't backed up by anything that I would call conservation biology or any science. I mean, we're in the year 2016. It should be time that we do things based on science and with an understanding of conservation biology. All the science that I've seen does not support predator killing to do anything. It doesn't enhance our wildlife resources. So if you have different science that's peer-reviewed, I'd like it cited for each project. I think it's just woeful, the lack of scientific support for any of these programs. Thank you.
For the record, Fred Volz. I'd like to go back to AB 78 in light of the fiscal year 17 plan. And really specifically, whether it was by intention or accident, in section 4B of paragraph 4B of section 4, it specifically calls for complete information before any lethal management and control of predatory wildlife plan is executed. So you can talk all you want about 80% has to go to killing, but there really is no demonstration in anything we've seen so far that we have complete information and that this serial killing of our state's public wildlife is appropriate or accomplishes any scientific ends. And there's a huge conflict of interest with APHIS because unless they get the money to do these killing programs, they're out of business in this state. And that's the bottom line. Thank you.
Any questions? Cody? Grant?
No, thank you.
Any other comments?
So you guys want to take action back on your February 9th?
So the question of this, we want to have our comments by February 9th and have our next meeting on February the 18th.
I would make a motion that we have our comments to Flint Wright by February 9th.
I'll second that.
I'll move in second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Does that include the date, or do you want to do a motion for the date of the meeting?
We can
do it.
I was going to wait till down at the end there.
On number 12.
Yeah, we got an agenda, we can just wait till 12. Okay, sounds good. No more questions for number 9? With that, we'll move on to number 10. Presentation of Nevada Wildlife Services Program and statewide report. Mark?
Again, Mark Jensen for the record. I included our statewide report in the packet again, and I don't have NRS Chapter 567 in front of me, but again, there is a requirement in 567 that I, as the state director for Wildlife Services, report to the PARC committee. So again, I am including this report as my obligation under 567 to report to the PARC committee. So again, everybody should have this report in their packet, and I can just go through it real briefly. Again, it just talks about acres worked, and again, this is mostly BLM lands, but there's also private, Forest Service, state military. And then it talks about our budget, and again, this is for the Nevada Wildlife Services program as a whole. You can see in fiscal year 2015, we did have a federal appropriation, about $1.2 million. The aviation safety money is also federal money that is a part of our federal appropriation to help run our aircraft. The avian influenza disease in swine is also federal money that is for us to conduct our avian influenza surveillance that we do here in Nevada, and then also the work that we're doing to limit and manage feral swine in Nevada. There's a couple of pockets of feral swine. The airport's money is a combination of private funds and then also DOD funds. Again, we have biologists at different airports around the state, and again, they are wildlife biologists, airport biologists that are there to reduce and minimize wildlife hazards to aircraft, and that's what that's for. The other cooperative funds, again, those are just private entities or individuals that we've done work for, and there's a variety of those. The state appropriated, again, is the state money that comes through the state legislature, and again, that pays for the 7 state people that are our state trappers, our state wildlife specialists that live throughout Nevada. So again, that is a state appropriation to pay for 7 state employees that are part of the program. NDOW, again, we've covered various aspects of the predator plan, the predation management plan in 2015. Again, you saw the work and financial plan, and in 2015, we did $191,366 of work for the Department of Wildlife. On down, you can see coyote take by method, aircraft, shooting M44 snares, traps. We took just over 3,000 coyotes across the state. Take mountain lions, pretty consistent with years in the past. Feral pigs 16, black bear 0. We flew 978 hours across Nevada with our aircraft, again October 1st through September 30th. If you flip to the next page, you can see that there's damage by resources listed here. There's two categories. One is verified by Wildlife Services and another is reported to Wildlife Services. Again, if we are there and we verify the damage, it goes in the verified column. If it's just reported to us, then we go into the reported category. And you can see the various categories of damage that is recorded. Our raven take, again, you can see a raven take, 437. Again, remember that this is a federal fiscal year report, so it doesn't exactly line up with the calendar year, so sometimes those numbers are different. Again, usually we take approximately 2,500 ravens, working with the Department of Wildlife to protect sage grouse. And then we also have another permit from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and we take ravens to protect livestock. And that's those two totals come up to the 3,437 ravens. Disease sampling, 567 samples taken. Again, that's a lot of that is for disease testing for avian influenza. Again, everybody probably heard about the outbreak of avian influenza back in the Midwest. APHIS has a nationwide sampling effort for avian influenza. They just had an outbreak of a different strain of avian influenza back in Indiana. So that continues. Technical assistance is when we provide information to people over the phone. We have a lot of phone calls that come in, and we provide them with information on how they might help themselves with a wildlife problem, skunks, various calls on various things. We provide technical assistance. Resources protected. Again, you can see as we work on a property and help protect livestock, sheep, cattle, we estimate the value of those resources, and you can see that, again, the Nevada Wildlife Services help Nevada's ranchers, farmers, wildlife managers, and the public protect over $462 million in resources in fiscal year 15. And then this was written when we had a continuing resolution, but we do have a fiscal year budget. I haven't got it yet, but we do have a budget. And with that, Mr. Chairman, that's the end of my report. Does anybody have any questions about our report or the Wildlife Services program?
Cody? Grant?
No, thank you.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Well, that concludes our information part of the meeting. We're going to move on to item number 11, I guess, which will be election of officers.
And I think by that, you, the only office is chair.
Chair and vice chair.
Is there a vice chair?
Yes. Boyd.
There's a motion from the floor for the chair.
I would make a motion that we keep the officers as is.
Is there a second?
Second.
And moved and seconded. Any other motions? The motion to close.
Motion to close the nominations.
It's been seconded, it's been made a motion to close. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. So, yes, I'm still in the hot seat.
Nobody wants to let you go.
Scramble volunteers to take your place.
Boyd will be the vice chairman, Vince Crowley. The next meeting date, it's tentatively talked about a little while ago on 2/18.
Make a motion that we set the next meeting date for February 18th.
I'll second.
And moved and seconded.
Okay, can I stop everybody here? Can we get what is there a time on the 18th that works for you guys better than, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, or is there, place? Because we could move this to another area if it worked better for the committee members, and so I want to leave that up to you guys.
Well, another office.
Yeah, another office.
In view of the light that most of the members are from the Elko County area, I would suggest we have it in there.
The Elko office.
Yes.
Grant?
Mr. Chairman, I feel like we should leave it at the Reno location.
If we leave it at the Reno location, being that time of the year, I will be presiding from Elko. Because we start calving and I cannot be, it takes me a day to get here, another day to get home. So
And we can do the same, video setup from Elko, even if you have the majority of folks from Elko.
Hey, Grant, if you wanted to come up to the Reno office, you could communicate through the teleconference equipment that we have from here with the Elko office. And all the documents would be here waiting for you. There'd probably be Dr. Solomon here as well.
That would work better for me for the Reno location. That was my only opinion on that.
Sure.
So I think that's up to the chair. You pick the location. I mean, basically, we'll run it out of wherever you are, and then everybody else can video conference in.
my preference is the Elko office.
Okay. You got a motion and a second for the 18th?
So, any questions on the 18th? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I guess the next meeting will be on February the 18th.
Do we have a time on that, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Or is it the same?
Does it work better for most people at 2 o'clock in the afternoon?
Afternoon's better for me than morning.
It is for me too.
Cody, what's best for you?
2 o'clock's fine, 2 or 4, anything in the afternoon.
So we'll go 2 o'clock, February 18th, 2016, in the Elko Department of Ag office. The next item on the agenda now is public comment on anything we discussed today.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Jerry Lynn again. I'd just like to reiterate a couple of things on the 80%. NDOW makes its contractors show reconciliated expenditure proof before they pay them. And I think that this committee should show this committee the same respect, because if you look at the Predator plan, it just says we're having 82% lethal. Well, you're taking their word at it, but they should break it down, because in the new plan they're only spending $472,000 for lethal work in the 2016 plan. So I think this committee could make a recommendation that they break down the expenditures of each plan, and you can add the numbers up to show they get to the 80%. And the other thing, again, to notify this committee on any amendments they make to the plan. Very important, because by law you're supposed to review the plan. If they make amendments, and they can make amendments anytime, then you're not reviewing the total plan. You're not reviewing the amendments. And then the plan should be concrete and cement by July the 1, instead of adding to it like in the middle of the season. Get the contract done by July the 1. And as far as the research you talked about here, the law, if you look at the law, the NRS, it says, to clarify the law, it says research should be necessary as needed. So it's not just go out and do research, it's as needed. And lastly, I wish to thank this committee for their diligence. And in conclusion, the legislature put a great importance and expectation on this committee with this new law. And I hope this committee realizes how important it is to this program. I believe there is more cumulative, on-the-ground, predatory experience on this committee than any other collective body in the state. And don't take it lightly. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comment? Las Vegas, do you have any other comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Karen Lane. It's been a little difficult to follow all the items on the agenda. If we could, when the agenda is put out, we could be advised where on your website these items are going to be, or else have them available in the meeting room when we get here. It would be really helpful, since several of the items that Mr. Jensen had as handouts were not available to us down here. Thank you.
I'm sure that the staff will work on that.
Heard, understood, acknowledged.
And
Elko, any questions?
so the two items, I think there were two that weren't available, but those two will be posted with the other items, so they will be on our website.
Yes.
agra.nv.gov, agri.nv.gov.
Any other public comments from Elko, Las Vegas, Grant? Public? Hearing none, I guess the next item on the agenda is adjournment.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor? Opposed?
I vote aye for all those who didn't vote. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Is it possible to get a copy of that last report?
Thank you.
That'd be great. Thank you.
That should have been